what frequencies are being projected in our communication? Question to consider. I remember working in Canada with a gentleman who was considered difficult to deal with, and individuals questioned whether I'd be able to work alongside this individual because he was known to be triggered by everything and it was so difficult to deal with. That's what was presented to me. It became evident that he had challenges dealing with emotional matters, and so essentially he took that to work with him, and immediately one could feel the effects of whatever was bothering him, and it was exhibited in anger at points in time, frustration, a pretty short fuse. How did I respond to him? I sought to understand him. There is a mode of thought, something I learned back in time, and I use it in classrooms. Seek to understand rather than to be understood. And the moment I could understand his viewpoint, his situation, then I could adjust my thinking, my approach to facilitate as best as possible his needs. Undoubtedly, there are times when it was really challenging. There are times when he was very angry about issues, and he was actually teaching me. We were doing truck bodybuilding, and he was teaching me on the job. And you can understand as a student, there are times you're going to follow up. How did he respond? Well, in his frustration many times, the experience was necessarily nice, but I sought to understand the individual, and so I ended up learning, and I was able to function. I detected that each day when I stepped into that workspace, his behavior was impacted by my mindset. So there were days when I would go in a mode that I am going to transform this individual. I'm going to ensure that he has the best possible day based on my activities, based on my effort. And undoubtedly, with that mindset, I didn't have to say anything. The moment I stepped in, his demeanor was completely different. And we had a beautiful work experience throughout the day. And it's persisted. And there are times when I took on the mindset of judging him. I went in deciding I'm just going to function, understanding that he can blow a fuse, and I'm going to just go and do my thing, don't really care. Never really I would not spend any time focusing on his needs or anything like that. And once I went in with that kind of mindset, the moment I stepped in, I could see a difference in the individual. And I used to play with it at times, just to see how my mindset impacted his behavior. And then I realized I did have a lot of control over my experiences throughout the day. I could start his day beautifully, or I could start a terrible day for him. And it speaks to that non-verbal communication, that we're engaged in conversation within the mind, and we're mentally prepared or unprepared to face discussions, situations, challenges. And once we become aware of our ability to impact other people just by the way we think, then essentially we can now begin to effect change. So there is that serious non-verbal communication that people read without words, the body language, all of that. It is far more powerful than the words spoken. And so essentially I actually purchased a book, Words Can Change Your Brain, that I purchased a couple of them and distributed in Canada. I asked the general manager to give it to him as a gift, but I didn't want him to know that I was the person who actually supplied the book. And they were taken aback that I would go to that length to seek to impact his behavior. And I remember leaving that company, and when I left, he cried tears. When I told him I was leaving, he cried tears. And he said, Elder, I respect the ground you walk on. We have the ability to shape people's lives. And if we care enough, then we'll take the time to do what's necessary to foster peace and harmony. Ours is a great nation. APOD, African People of the Diaspora. I specifically mention APOD because we're seeking to foster harmony not just within our community, within the country, but globally within our people, because we really have fallen apart and we need to re-engage in communication, in establishing that bond that has been broken for so long through some terrible situations, as we know the history. And there's a lot that need to be discussed. So we are seeking to engage the people of the diaspora in the long run. And when we all value the importance of harmony among ourselves, then that's when we are going to recognize how important it is not to leave one single individual out. And that leads us to APOD, the African People of the Diaspora with Disabilities. That very resourceful population that experiences serious challenges with the disabilities, and once we become aware of their needs and regard their right to a healthier quality of life, then we will engage them and we'll do what's necessary to make life far more meaningful for them, much easier. African people of the diaspora with disabilities. So they have, for example, the deaf community, they have issues with or challenges with communication, of hearing us or relating to us through signing, and we're unable to interpret or to understand what they're conveying. And can you imagine the effect that this has on them? Which was brought home forcefully to me at the Gallaudet University in DC, where a game of charades was introduced by the facilitator, and we were trying to determine whatever the person was trying to mime or mimic for us to decide. And it was interesting that the person was trying to show us an elephant and we could not figure it out. It took quite some doing and it was pretty frustrating. And hence that resourceful population has to be going through immense challenges in trying to convey their thoughts to us, to seek to have us understand them, to communicate with us. And I see it of utmost importance and utmost value that we reach out, seek to understand their needs, and seek to engage in sign language. I have been attempting to teach students the basics of what I've learned at the Newstead Primary School, and it's interesting how wide-eyed these kids are and how willing to learn. They've understood the needs of that community, and I'd love for all of us to understand their needs. So it's about communication, improved communication, improving quality of lives. And interestingly, they're not just the only ones who stand to benefit from this. You'll be surprised at how we, the ones who can't understand them, are at a disadvantage. Very often, they listen on a different frequency, and there's a lot to learn from them. Beautiful communicators, very resourceful. So everyone is being encouraged to consider sign language. And I'll tell you this, one of the theme songs in this initiative I have is just the line, "Who knows what tomorrow brings?" It's a beautiful song, but just that line, "Who knows what tomorrow brings?" When I did an analysis, I recognized that probably more than 90% of people with disabilities weren't born that way. And that's a serious thought to consider. Who knows what tomorrow brings? Now, if one seeks to learn, and I'm kind of speaking on deafness at the moment, if one seeks to learn sign language for the sake of assisting the deaf community and being better able to communicate with them, who knows if deafness knocks the door of such an individual later on. That individual would be at a great advantage, having learned sign language, to be able to transition naturally from understanding the language. And nobody knows what the situation holds for them. But not just for that reason for yourself, just understand how difficult it is for those individuals who just need someone to communicate with. And we think of people visiting our shores and would have enjoyed a far better experience had there been more individuals capable of communicating with them. And so let us lend our hearts and our thoughts to this scenario. It was amazing just to see those little children in school, so interested in learning. And so we're seeking to foster that relationship between the National Association of the Disabilities, of the Disabled in the US, and with our community here, to see how best we can touch the lives of people across the globe, or people across the diaspora. We really need to bond far more at this point in time. It's my view. What's yours? So, as we continue with the topic of communication, you're all called upon to lend your voices. It's that synergy that is going to make all the difference when every single member of our nation joins hands and hearts. I relate it to a truck that needs to be pulled, and there are thousands of links of a chain all thrown all over the place. Powerful as those links are, by themselves they can't make an impact, but when joined together, great things occur. I call upon our people, APOD, African people of the diaspora. This is our beautiful home. Let's nurture it. We're a beautiful people, royally toned people. I speak to you today. Come on board. This is the voice of reason. I'm Emperor Elijah Abeid Kazembe Mwata Franklin J. Wallace. Race restoring a clean environment, national healing, an environmental and cultural approach. Come on board. Have an awesome day filled with great successes and everything positive.